form first. So just like with parabolas and circles, putting those into standard form, you will have to complete the square. Okay, so we are still completing the square for these problems. So that means what I need to do is group my x's together and group my y's together, and then move this value onto the other side of my equation. Okay, so I'll subtract 144 from both sides of that equation. And I'm going to group my x's. So I have 9x squared plus 72x. Okay, and then group my y's. So plus 25y squared minus 150y, and that will be equal to negative 144. Okay, so I have my x's together here, y's together here. So now before I complete the square, I want to factor out the number that is next to those squared values. So I want to factor out 9 from my x's. So if I factor out 9 from my x's, I'm left with x squared plus 8x. So make sure you factor out that 9 from both values there. Okay, same thing with my y's. I want to factor out that value next to y squared. That's 25. So I'm left with y squared minus 6y. So factoring out 25 from both those values. And I still have negative 144 on the right-hand side. So I now want to complete the square for both this section and for this quantity here. Okay, so that means I need to add a value in to that quantity. Okay, I'm adding a value into that quantity. Same thing with my y's. I want to add a value into that quantity. Now whatever I do to one side of my equation, I have to do to the other. So I have to add in 2 values on the right as well. So to get each of these values, okay, you have to take b over 2 and square it. Okay, so my b value inside my parentheses here is 8. So 8 divided by 2 squared. Okay, 8 divided by 2 is 4. 4 squared is 16. Okay, same thing with that second value with your y's. Okay, we're taking b over 2 and squaring it. Okay, your b value in this quantity is negative 6. Okay, so I have negative 6 over 2 squared. Okay, negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. Negative 3 squared is 9. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite this out. So I have 9 times the quantity of x squared plus 8x plus what I just found is 16 plus 25 times the quantity of y squared minus 6y plus what I just found is 9 is equal to 144 plus 2 other quantities. Now I'm not writing 16 and 9 in those 2 other quantities. Okay, I added a 16 here, yes. But what I really added on here was this 9 times 16. You have to distribute that back in. So you have to multiply these. Okay, same thing with 25 and 9. You have to multiply those together to get what's on the right-hand side. Okay, so we have 9 times 16 for this first one. That is 144. For the second one, we have 25 times 9. That is 225. Okay, so that's how we're getting those spaces on the right. So next what we can do is finish completing the square. So factor out that quantity with your x's and factor out that quantity with your y's. Okay, so I end up with 9 times the quantity x plus 4 squared. Okay, you're completing the square, so you should have a quantity squared at the end there. Plus 25 times the quantity y minus 3 squared. Again, you should have a quantity squared. That's equal to, my 144's cancel each other out, so it'll be 225. Now remember, an ellipse, okay, an equation of ellipse is always equal to 1. Okay, so we have to make this equation equal to 1. So what could I do here to make this a 1? I'm going to divide. Okay, I'm going to divide by 225. Okay, so this has to be a 1. So in the front here, all I have to do is reduce that fraction of 9 over 225. So divide 225 by 9 to get 25. Plus, same thing here, reduce that fraction. So I have y minus 3 squared over 9 is equal to 1. Okay, that is your standard form for an ellipse. Okay, from here, we're just going to do what we did yesterday. Okay, you figure out which way it's going. Is it vertical or horizontal? Find our center, find your axes, vertices, co-vertices, foci points, and graph it. Okay, so our center, H is always with X, K is always with Y. So our center point is at -4, 3. Length of your major axis is 2A, minor axis is 2B. Your A value is always the greatest number in the denominator. So A is going to be equal to the square root of 25, which is 5. And B is going to be equal to the square root of 9, which is 3. So your major axis is 2 times A. So 2 times 5 is 10. Minor axis is 2 times 3. That's 6. Okay, next I have to figure out if this is horizontal or vertical. Okay, since your A squared value is underneath X, that is a horizontal ellipse. Okay, if your A squared value is underneath your X, that is a horizontal ellipse. Okay, using that information, then you can figure out where your vertices would be. So for a horizontal ellipse, your vertices are at H plus A, K, and H minus A, K. So taking your H value of -4, adding on 5, that is 1. And then your K value remains the same at 3. Same thing, but subtract. So -4 minus A, which is 5. That's -9. And then K value stays the same at 3. Our co-vertices are at H, K plus B. and hk minus b. So our h value should stay the same from our center. So that's at negative 4. Take our k value of 3, add on 3. See, it's 6. Same thing with the second one. H is the same at negative 4. Taking our k value of 3, subtracting b is 3 to get 0. Our foci points are at h plus c, k, and h minus c, k. What's the equation I used to find c?
A squared minus b squared equals c squared.
Yes. Okay, so this is the equation I need to use to find c. So I know what my a squared value is. It's from my original equation. That's up here. Okay, a squared is 25, b squared is 9. Okay, so c squared is equal to 16. So c is equal to 4. So we have our h value, which is negative 4. We want to add on 4 to that to get 0. And then k is going to remain the same at 3. Our second foci point, we'll take our h value of negative 4, subtract 4 to get negative 8. And then again, our k value remains the same. Okay, from here, all I have to do is graph those points then that I just found for your vertices and co-vertices and connect those. So your vertices are at 1, 3, and negative 9, 3. Co-vertices are at negative 4, 6. And negative 4, 0. And your center was at negative 4, 3. Okay, and then I can just connect each of those vertices and co-vertices together. To make that ellipse. Okay, and then you can plot your foci points at 0, 3 and negative 8, 3. Okay, so it's pretty much the same thing we did yesterday. You just have the added step of solving for standard form. So you have to complete the square to solve for that standard form. Questions? Am I good to go on to the second example? All right. Number 2, we want to start the same way. So I want to group my x's, group my y's, move the constant over to the other side. So I'm going to subtract 52 from both sides. Group my x's together. So we have 4x squared minus 32x plus y squared minus 4y is equal to negative 52. So I moved the 52 over, grouped my x's, grouped my y's. Okay, so here's my x's and y's. So now if there's a number next to your squared value, you have to factor that out from both. Okay, so I do have a 4x squared, so I want to factor that 4 out. So I have x squared minus 8x. Okay, factor that 4 out from the 32 as well. Okay, I don't have a number next to y squared, so I don't have to factor anything out of that one, so it'll just stay the same. Okay, next I want to complete the square for both quantities. So I have to add in an extra value. So we have 4 times the quantity x squared minus 8x plus a value, plus the quantity of y squared minus 4y plus a quantity. That's equal to negative 52. Whatever I do to one side, I have to do the other. So I have to add in those extra values. So finding my values here, I need to take b over 2 and square it. So my b value with my x's is negative 8. So I'll divide that by 2 and square it. So that is negative 4. Negative 4 squared is 16. Second quantity here, my b value is negative 4. Divide that by 2 and square it. That is negative 2. Negative 2 squared is 4. Okay, writing this out with my new quantities, I have x squared minus 8x plus the value I found is 16, plus y squared minus 4y plus the value I found was 4. Okay, to get my quantities on the right, I need to multiply the value I found with the number out front. So for this first one, I have to multiply 4 and 16 together. Okay, so we have 4 times 16, that's 64. My second one, my value out front here is just 1. Okay, so you could still multiply those together, right? But you're still just going to end up with 4. Okay, so I have to add 4 to the other side as well. Okay, then from here I just need to finish completing the square, so I need to factor that quantity. So we have 4 times the quantity x minus 4 squared plus y minus 2 squared, and that will be equal to 16. Okay, so I just factored both of those larger quantities into a quantity squared. From here, what should I do with this 16? What does that have to equal? 1. That means I need to divide by 16. Okay, so I end up with reducing my fraction here of 4 over 16 to x minus 4 squared over 4 plus, I can't reduce this fraction, so it is just over 16, and that's equal to 1. So this is the standard form of this ellipse. And then we can find our center and our different vertices from here. So our center is at 4, 2. Okay, h is with x, k is with y. Our a squared value is the greatest denominator. Okay, so our greatest denominator here is 16. So to find a, we need to take the square root of that. That's 4. To find b, we take the square root of the other number, and that's 2. Okay, so our major axis is 2a, so that is going to be 8 units. Minor axis is 2b, that will be 4 units. Now I need to decide if this is a vertical or horizontal ellipse. Okay, so that's where I look at my a squared value and see which it's under. Okay, it is under y. Since your a squared value is underneath y, that's a vertical ellipse. Okay, this is a vertical ellipse. So the equation for your vertices then are at hk plus a, hk minus a. So we keep h the same at 4. We'll take our k value of 2 and add on 4 to get 6. Again, keep your h value the same in the second one. Our k value is 2. We're going to subtract 4 to get negative 2. To find our co-vertices, we use h plus b, comma k, and h minus b, comma k. So we'll take 4, add on 2 to get 6, and then k stays the same at 2. Second co-vertice, h is at 4, minus 2 is 2, and k stays the same at 2. Finding our foci points, c squared is equal to a squared minus b squared. So a squared is 16. B squared is 4. So c squared is equal to 12. Take that square root. That's about 3.5. Okay, from here, using my equation for my foci points, I would have h and then k plus c and h k minus c. Okay, so h stays the same at 4. K is 2 plus our c value, so 2 plus 3.5 is 5.5. Again, h stays the same here. K value is 2 minus 3.5, that is negative 1.5. Okay, then all we have to do is plot our points. So center is at 4, 2. Vertice at 4, 6. And 4, negative 2. And then co-vertice at 6, 2 and 2, 2. Okay, then we can just connect the vertices to co-vertices. To make that ellipse. We can plot our foci points, so that was at 4, 5.5, and 4, negative 1.5. Okay, so